What's up, fam? Welcome back to the Steep Stuff Podcast. I'm your host, James Lauriello, and I'm so excited to bring you guys an episode today with none other than Miss Andie Cornish. The dual sport mountain athlete based in Jackson, Wyoming, came on the pod. She is both a ski mountaineer and mountain runner. We caught up to chat about a lot of things. Andie is gearing up for a race at the Broken Arrow Ascent in just a few weeks. We talked about some of her experience racing a lot of the Broken Arrow races, including a top 10 finish at the 23K a few years back. We also chatted about some other uphill races that Andie's going to be taking on throughout the rest of the year. We talked about what it was like to kind of balance both being a ski mountaineer and that training modality along with mountain running and how one complements the other. We talked about the integration of mountain biking and how being a mountain runner, you don't have to do just one thing. How she kind of took a lot of information from her ski background and is able to apply that to a lot of her training. So there was a lot of training theory talk in there too. And last but not least, we talked about what it is like, and was like, if you will, growing up in Jackson, Wyoming, and kind of watching it change over the years, especially just being there and seeing how the town has just kind of transformed itself over the last few decades, which is kind of cool to talk about, especially with a lot of pressure on mountain towns, especially Jackson and others, even in Colorado, like Telluride and others across the country. So really good chat. This was personally like a really fun one for mine. We really enjoyed it. Can't wait to have Andie back on, and wishing her the absolute best of luck as she takes on a couple big races, but notably the Broken Arrow Ascent in just a few weeks. So without further ado, hope you enjoyed this one. None other than Miss Andie Cornish.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Andie Cornish, welcome back to the Steep Stuff Podcast. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Super excited to have a convo. Oakley Olson told me I should have you on the podcast, and then I started doing some research. I was like, I've heard your name so many times get brought up by so many different people. I was like, we need to have a conversation. So,
I love Oakley. I'm glad.
He's a sweetheart. Very sweet girl. I was a little bummed. Nobody showed up to Sunapee. I was hoping there would be like a deeper field.
I know.
Not a lot of people
showed. It was
up.
Definitely a weird year for a lot of people. I mean, she, of course, was at NCAA, so that's pretty awesome. And a whole bunch of life stuff for other people. And so it was definitely interesting to see who was on the start list versus who could make it. And I think sometimes those early races, I know June's not necessarily super early, but having it out east when a lot of runners are based in the west can be super challenging, I know, too.
Makes it hard. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was kind of hoping and I love Tom and I love that whole group, but like it would have been nice if we had as a Cirque Series race this year. I feel like that should always be a mountain running champs. It'd be pretty sweet, right?
I know. That was, last year was my first US champs, and that was at Snowbird, and that was just like unmatched. So much fun, and having it as a Cirque Series just made it all the better. I mean, it's so well put together, and Julian does such an amazing job. And it was just, there was all the hype there, and I'm sure Sunapee did a great job too. But the Cirque Series definitely drawing a larger crowd too, not just the elite runners. And I think that's what makes trail running special, is having that big community. So
it's true. It's very true. All right. So let's get in. I want to learn more about you, your background, kind of what you did collegiately. Like maybe give me like the 5-minute elevator pitch on like, your relationship with running, how you got into it, and go from there.
Yeah. So I actually grew up as I would say my main sport was an alpine ski racer. I'm from Jackson, Wyoming, and so it's pretty typical in that regard. And I did running every so often, and you realize that you're good at it when you do like the time trials for alpine skiing and stuff. But I never didn't really get into it until my cousins actually and my brother started doing cross country in middle school, and I was just super jealous, and I was like, that sounds so much fun. I want to do that. So when I hit sixth grade, I just kind of started doing it for fun. Like I just wanted to be with my brother, and um, then I had my first few races, and I realized I was pretty good at it. And it went from having, it was still fun, but I started getting more competitive and realized like, wow, this is something I can really do. But I continued to ski. Like I love skiing just as much, but that's kind of started my love for running. It continued through high school, and then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do in college. And so I ran at the University of Vermont, committed to run D1 there. My whole family had gone to Middlebury. We're all from the West, but a lot of West Coast kids go east just for that experience.
Yep.
So that was, love doing that. But during my summers, I kind of always was drawn to the trails. I would think I like largely got drawn because during the COVID, that was like my freshman year, I started ski mountaineering. And I was like, where has this been my whole life? Like I love being in the mountains, and I kind of realized that trail running was, pretty similar. Like I love to be in the mountains. And so I actually started my first race was the Jackson Hole Hill Climb. And I was just like had the most fun I've ever had, but also just realized that climbing was like kind of what I was really good at. And so from there on out, my junior, senior year, I was kind of like, all right, I think trail running is what I want to do post collegiately. We'll see, just kind of keep doing both. And went from there, got 10th at Broken Arrow in 2023, and I was like, all right, like this is what I want to do. And so just kind of started doing that, and then started integrating my ski mountaineering into that as well. And so that's kind of how I became the dual athlete of loving ski mountaineering, loving big mountain skiing, but also love to trail run and do all of that.
Amazing. Amazing. What a cool story. I got to ask you, like, obviously, I've talked to a few athletes that have either grown up in the Jackson area or, or obviously live there now. Like, what is it like growing up there? Like, it must be crazy. Like, it's obviously one of the most beautiful places that skyline is insane. Like, maybe talk about what it's like growing up there.
It's pretty special. It's funny though, because it's such a small town that I think a lot of us didn't quite get a grasp of how special that was. You know how beautiful it is, but it really wasn't until, you get a little bit older, you're in high school, or then you go to college and people are just like, oh my gosh, like you don't even know where you're from. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And obviously I appreciated it when I was younger too, but I'm just like every day I'm so grateful that my parents chose to raise me there because living 5 minutes from the base of like one of the best ski resorts in the mountain, just having a community of people around me who love to be outside, having the access to national parks, like two of the biggest, most popular ones, Grand Teton and Yellowstone. It definitely shaped who I am as a person and my love for the mountains. I think um, it's just like uncomparable, and I think it gave me a big appreciation for just having that access and being able to have that privilege to have the access that I do and live in somewhere like that. And I think it's taught me a lot too, though, because living in a town like that can be super unique in the sense that things change a lot and it gets more popular and it gets busier and it starts to develop more, and I think that can be really hard on a community, and you can see how it can change, going from this little small town, and my dad was a ski bum, and now you can't live there unless your parents had a house a long time ago, and
Yeah.
that can be really challenging to see people kind of being pushed out. Or like the question of if I wanted to raise a family there someday, like that's really, a hard thing to grasp. But it's been really cool, and the people that I've been able to meet and the opportunities I've had have just been unbelievable. And I'm so lucky. But it's hard because every time I go somewhere else, I find myself comparing it to Jackson, and I'm like, I can't do that anymore. Like everything has its own thing. Um, but yeah, definitely very lucky. And I just like love to be able to share that with other people and encourage people to go out there when they can because it's a cool place.
I got a good question for you. And I don't mean this negatively. I'm just so curious because I almost come across negative with it because so I live a couple miles. Do you know what the Manitou Incline is?
Yeah.
So I live a couple miles from the Manitou Incline, and when it becomes tourist season, it drives me nuts. Now, the level of tourism you guys get is like tenfold of what we get. Yeah. How do you function? Like, does it drive you nuts? Like,
it's bad. And that is a big reason why it can be challenging. And I think having my summer being my season of racing I like it a lot because I can travel and be outside of it. The tourism is definitely a lot. I know it runs our economy and that's cool, but I think the hardest part is that it's just like so many people and a lot of people who don't respect the environment in the way that you should. And so it's really hard to see the place that I love so much just get like really beat up by people who just don't seem to like have the care for the wildlife and the environment, and that can be really challenging. Because it's a special place, and like I think everyone should be able to enjoy that, but there definitely needs to be a little bit more of a switch into sustainable tourism in these areas, or else it just like won't last forever. And yeah, it becomes pretty hard to live there when, there's like one road leading to the resort, and so it takes me an hour and a half to get into town, even in the winter, just because the resort closes and or like
What?
the park road closes. It takes me like an hour to drive 9 miles. So it can be hard.
Wow, that's so interesting, kind of crazy.
Hmm.
Like I said, I don't mean to mind it. I just always have to ask because most of the people that I know that are in that area either live like, for instance, like Anna Gibson now is like close to the mountain resort, or like Michelino formerly lived on the other side of where it was like Driggs is a little quieter. Like it's like not as much going on. So I feel like you could do more things. But like if you're in Jackson proper, like dude, that's bananas.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think the off seasons we definitely try not to take them for granted, and you kind of find your way. Like there's a lot of places I feel like it's still pretty local, a lot of trails where it's not like the big ones. You're not going to go hike Delta Lake in the middle of summer, which is like the most popular trail, or if you do, the right times. But I feel like I'm able to handle it a bit. It's just there's definitely I feel like the driving is the worst. It's a small town, lots of cars. So that can be hard, but
One
definitely.
of the things I really enjoyed, I was out there for Cirque Series Grand Targhee last
Mm,
year, and it was my first time to that range, and I was
mm,
just so astonished at how special it was. One of
mm.
the things that blew me away was that like I just saw more animal life. Like there was more animals and that little like whether it was grizzly bear, black bear,
Yeah.
moose, like porcupine, everything is
Yeah.
there. What is it like growing up? Like, do you just have like a special understand? It's almost like people that grow up in Alaska, right? Where you just kind of have
Yeah.
this like understanding and like know, like, oh, that's a grizzly bear. You need to
Yeah.
like, what was that? What is it like growing up, like almost in running around or like exercising in woods that like have like things like that and
Yeah.
everything?
It's funny you say that because I feel like I tell people this a lot. For someone who grew up and has spent like I don't even know, so many hours in that environment, I'm still absolutely terrified of animals. And I think that, but not when I'm with people. Like when I'm running alone and I'm in the woods or like I'm out in the Tetons, I just like have this fear, like, this, usual fear. But, like running into a grizzly, I'm still terrified. I'm not like, oh my gosh, like a grizzly, but, I think I'm just like a cautious person, but you definitely, I would say like I'm more used to it at this point. Like, you learn since in school, since like day one, they start teaching you how to use bear spray and like, how to respect the moose and respect this. And I have had over hundreds of moose visit my backyard. And you definitely just, you gain an appreciation for the animals around you and like how to protect them. And, I live on a road where the speed limit drops 10 miles per hour at night just for the moose and the bears. And, but yeah, just because I mean, it just teaches you to be more cautious and understanding of where you are and really learn that like you're recreating in their area, they're not recreating in yours. And so like, anything that happens to you because you weren't being smart is like going to be seen negatively by the community. Like they're going to protect the animals more than they're going to protect you.
It's true.
So you, in a sense,
Yeah.
like if you do something dumb, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. The animals belong, they were there first. And so that's definitely been interesting. But once you get to know an area a little bit better, I feel like I'm comfortable in certain areas. But yeah.
Nice. No, I love it. I appreciate that answer. I was just so curious because, I was just blown away. I was like, man, like there's a lot of, in Colorado, I don't know if it's because we have so many people. I live on the Front Range, like down by the springs, and like we don't see like every now and then maybe I'll see a moose, but very rare. Or
Hmm.
like, and it's like we just don't have that density of wildlife in the area
Hmm.
that we're in. But like, because it's so spread out. But like in that area, I was like, holy shit, like there's everything out here. It's cool. Um,
Yeah.
all right, so I want to pivot a little bit. You're training right now. You said you were in Idaho doing some training out of that area. Like,
Mhm.
maybe talk about like that area and what that's like. Because I've never been to Sun Valley, never ran around there before. The ski resort looks absolutely insane and like super rad. So maybe
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think Idaho, Sun Valley area is definitely a little bit of a hidden gem. And I think in the regard that it's just not super accessible. Like there's a big airport in Jackson, with the national park. And I think because there isn't a national park here, despite having the Sawtooth Wilderness area, it's just a little bit more quiet. Actually a lot of people in Jackson like to come here or even move here just because people like to think it's how Jackson was 20 years ago. But there's like you're surrounded, similar thing. It's more of a valley versus being surrounded like a hole. But unbelievable. It's like, I don't even know, there's 3 or 4 different, maybe even 5 different mountain ranges surrounding you at all times. And there's just unbelievable access. Really, world-renowned ski resort. There was the World Cup champs here this year, for Alpine. And yeah, I'm really, I always, whenever I run these mountains, I'm always surprised they only had that circ here that one time because I just did a workout today up that mountain and it is steep. Like it is an unbelievably steep mountain and it's definitely grueling. And it rises, 3,200 feet. And so it's a pretty intense mountain, for good training, but also really, really good mountain biking, skiing, backcountry skiing. It really has it all. So pretty similar to Jackson, but it's nice for me to kind of escape that and come here and train. There's a lot of professional Nordic skiers who come here to train because they have a professional team. And that can be really fun to train with them and run with them and bike with them when they're doing that. So,
Ooh, talk about that. Like, because I don't think people understand like how like Nordic ski, I guess they're like monster athletes, right?
oh yeah,
Like just insane aerobic engines. Like that's how we have most of the best trail runners in the world were Nordic skiers or
yeah.
are Nordic skiers. Maybe talk about what it's like to kind of train with them.
Yeah, so I think, I am a runner, so I can say this myself, but the joke that my boyfriend always likes to make is that runners have a hard time understanding how to like really train and I think that's just like a Nordic skier thing to say, but he's got a point in the sense that we don't really learn how to use our heart rate training. That's a new thing to us, right? Like we didn't learn how to fuel. I did 14-mile long runs in college, no gels and no water. And that's just, I think running is a little bit the way that road runners train. It's transitioning now, but the way at least I experience it is a bit outdated. And I think that Nordic skiers are just really in tune with their bodies in the sense that they heart rate train and they know, they do a lot of strength but they're multi-sport athletes. They don't just Nordic ski to be fast. Like they run and they bike. And I always found like I connected to that community a little bit more because I was never just a runner. If anything, I was a skier more than I was a runner at some points, or I mountain bike a lot. And that was super different than a lot of people in college who I trained with. And when I went home for a whole winter and just ski mountaineered the whole time, people would kind of judge it. But then I'd come back and PR on every event. And so it was like I found that I connected to that Nordic community more. And so when I get to train with them here, I feel like I gain a lot of insight on that and kind of how they train and how they see like recovery and performance. And but also it's just nice to like be surrounded by athletes who maybe I'm not competing with in the exact same way right now, because that can be that comparison and that competitive game can be really tough sometimes, as I'm sure you know, and trying to think that what you're doing is sometimes it's hard when I, do a 4-hour mountain bike ride and I see someone else run 20 miles and I'm like, oh gosh, maybe I should be doing that, and being around a ton of Nordic skiers has really helped me understand that like being multi-sport athletes and doing it all, I think it makes them some of the best athletes in the world, the strongest and really capable of anything, which is pretty incredible.
You said so many gems in there, like they're so spot on. So I got injured. I had not a bad injury, but a nice little injury that derailed me for a little bit. So
Mhm.
the beginning of my season like kind of forced me onto the bike in the
Mhm.
over the last 3 weeks. And dude, it's the first time I've been on the bike and I love it.
Yeah.
It is like such an unlock, and I'm so mad at myself that like you get in as a runner, you get in your own brain, right? It's like, oh, if I want to be a better runner, I have to run more, and that's
Yeah.
not really just the case. Like you could do both, and you could do other things too to get
Mhm.
extremely fit. Maybe talk about like how you utilize the mountain bike as well in your training, and kind of how that makes you a more balanced athlete.
Yeah, I really like to like I really hate when people say like the only way to be faster at running is running. I think I was told that my whole life. And when you start running in college and stuff, it's like when you call it cross training, right? Which I just think is so dumb because it's training, like you're still training. And that's something I learned from the Nordic skiers. Like, they train on an hour basis. So it's not just like, oh, this is mileage or this is like cross trained. It's just training. Everything goes together and they see time on feet is time on feet. And I think that's just a really healthy and smart way to look at it because there's so much you can be doing to be fit. And I've found personally that when I integrate things like mountain biking and ski mountaineering into my training, I'm healthier, I'm happier, I'm more fresh when it comes to running. And honestly, I've prevented injury like, pretty well my whole life. I've been pretty lucky with that because I think that those sports have given me a lot of strength in areas that a lot of runners don't get normally. And I feel like that's been super, super helpful to keeping me, strong and, able to do what I'm doing now. But I just feel like being a multi-sport athlete is how, I mean, it doesn't, some people are only runners and that's awesome. And they love it. But I truly think it's just how you can put more time and more training in even and just being happier and but maintaining a positive relationship with running still and being injury free. Yeah, whenever people are like, "Oh, cross training," and I'm like, "It's just training. Like you're
Yeah.
just gaining fitness, right?" And I love that I can like prove that to people and spend a whole season skiing and then come back and be the fastest I've ever been. And I'm like, "See, like it's just training, and I'm happy."
It's so interesting to me. I have to be honest. Like I feel like the Nordic skiers kind of figured it out. And when I say figured it out, it's like I just think that their methodology just translates so much better to being a better mountain athlete, better mountain runner,
Mhm.
as opposed to. I mean, granted, like there's still times to, like I still before got hurt, like I was on the track a lot. Probably that's
Mhm.
the reason I got hurt. But like at the same time. I think that there's balance in everything and there's a way to find it. But like, I think the Nordic skier, one from the heart rate perspective, two from the hour perspective, and just implementing those two little things and with the cross training, I shouldn't say cross training, with the mountain
No,
bike
I get
or
it.
with those other modalities, I think are just like such unlocks for people that like
Mhm.
maybe just kind of are stuck in their own little bubble. So yeah, I'm a big
Mhm.
fan. If
Yeah.
if you don't mind me asking, like, how much biking do you do, like, on the mountain bike? Because I know you can get a lot of vertical with it. Like,
Oh yeah.
are you more hour based? Or are you more like, how much vert can I get? Like, how do you kind of judge it?
Yeah, I would say I like kind of both. I definitely love getting a lot of vert. I see vert is something to me. Sometimes I feel like I switch even from mileage over to vert and just being like how much climbing I can get right now. Um, and so it's kind of just like how your body, I mean, I would say it's yeah, a mix of hours invert. But I kind of alternate with running and if it's not mountain biking, it's in the skiing, it's winter, it's all skiing, but and then running like twice a week. But I would say in the summer I switched to, I would say running more, 3 or 4 times a week and then biking the other days. Or a lot of times I'll do doubles where I like run smaller in the morning, bike in the afternoon. But I just feel like a big part of where my fitness can come from is having those big endurance base days. And that, in the winter, that can come from these 6 hour skis that I do in the mountains. And I think that's harder to do with running because that's all the time. Because if you do that all the time, you're gonna probably get injured more or more tired and it's just more time on feet. But with biking, you can be grinding out there, mountain biking so hard, but for hours, 4+ hours and do a big day. And I think that adds a lot to your base. Like the big sessions with lots of hours, I think are super crucial, at least to me as an athlete. And I feel like that's a little bit harder with running to do all the time. But when you can add biking in there and make it mountain biking, I think you can get that vert and you're testing those same muscles that you would in an uphill running, not just on on the road bike. It can just be flats and that's fine. But I found that mountain biking has been like the exact kind of muscles that you use for running. And the exact like cardio feeling that I think is like a perfect combination.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. Well, you know what I want to get into is like I haven't done it yet because I'm still like coming back, but like start biking to the bases of like peaks, running
Hmm.
up the peak and then running
Yeah.
down. Do you ever
Yeah.
do anything like that? Any of those
I was,
objectives?
yeah, I was thinking about that a lot. I mean, we definitely do it in the springtime with skiing. A lot of those snow, the high line, like the snow line kind of gets really high. And so there's a lot of mountain biking to skiing, which is cool. But I think there is definitely more I was thinking about this today because the trails at the house that I'm staying at like connect directly to the mountain. And so I think it'd be cool to do like your own version of like a duathlon, right? But it's
Yeah.
mountain biking and running. And I definitely want to do some stuff like that because I think that can just be more fun. But also there's a lot of mountains out there where the approach might be miles of flat and doing that on a bike might make it just more efficient. Still getting the same hours fitness, but just changing the modes. So I'd like to get into it more for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like opened up. I biked up a pass the other day, like up to the base of a peak, like a 13er, and I was like, ooh, like this would be really
Yeah.
fun to run up and down. I was like, I'm gonna have to save that one. But yeah, I
Yeah.
just got the gears turning in my head, and a lot of people have been doing it for a while. So
Yeah.
like Kyle Richardson and guys like that. But like,
Yeah.
it's cool stuff. I want to talk skimo with you. So. I know ski mountaineering is different, like
Mhm.
ski touring is different
Yeah.
from ski mountaineering, if you will. Like what is your kind of sweet spot? Do you race skimo or are you just more backcountry? Like what is your style?
Yeah, so for a while, I would say, I mean, up until now, currently, my version of ski mountaineering is not racing. I just love, it's when you think of like the Tetons, you go ski the Grand, you go ski the Middle. I mean, searching for couloirs, skiing big lines, even doing some like free ride competitions. That has kind of interested me. And this year, I kind of almost got drawn into that skimo community. You know, I signed up for Wasatch, Powder Keg. I was like, this is what I want to do. But then I got COVID and couldn't go. And it kind of caused me just to sit there and realize that I think I was doing that just simply because I thought that's what I had to do with ski mountaineering. Like, I have all this fitness uphill and like, okay, I have to race. But I just am not drawn to the racing side of that. I think it's a very different community than what I'm looking for in backcountry skiing and ski mountaineering as a sense of like, you know, being out there for long hours. And I think a lot of skimo people do that, but I'm not necessarily looking to race, at least the way that it's transitioning in the US, where it's more sprint oriented, it's more on piste. Like, I want to be off piste, skiing big traverses, skiing big lines. I feel like that's what makes me the happiest. And I feel like growing up as a ski racer, I've been able to become a pretty decent skier, and I don't feel like I could show that in skimo, and I think that that can be shown more in, you know, ski mountaineering or, you know, more back free ride comps and stuff like that, which I know is like, I think I got drawn into the skimo because it's not often, or I don't really know many people who are trying to do the whole, you know, I'm a professional trail runner, but also I'm a skier. And but I just really made that decision for myself this year that I was going to set that narrative and that I don't have to fit that mold necessarily. And I am gonna, you know, be like supported in both being a skier and a runner. And not just like a skimo, like Killian and all that. And I think that's amazing what they do, but I can be a big mountain skier and a, you know, endurance athlete at the same time. So that's kind of how I find it. And it's all new. I'm navigating that. I think it's kind of a new world that's opening up. And so I'm trying to figure out how that's going to look for me, but I'm definitely excited about that.
Oh, super cool. I want to talk about some of the big peaks, like skiing some of the big peaks, like the Grand and things like that, like on the Tetons. Like, maybe talk about like what it's like. It's like, obviously there's ropes, sometimes there's ice, like there's a lot of stuff that goes into like skiing the Grand. Like, can you maybe talk a little bit about like that? Like maybe kind of paint that picture for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I sadly didn't get to ski. One of my objectives right now is the Grand, and it's more that I just haven't timed out like the weather perfectly for it. But you know, I got to ski the Middle again for the second time this year, and you know, it's like the 50 classics, like what Cody Townsend does. The Middle, the East Face is one of those. But it's, you know, I kind of started doing it with my friends during COVID, and we're all endurance athletes, but we just found like, okay, but we're also skiers. You know, we grew up in Jackson, you know, we don't want to just go up, like we want to go down too, and do it for the downs. But it's really interesting, you know, you're combining, it's really challenging going uphill. Like, you're combining gaining 7,000 feet of vert with heavy skis on, because you're not wearing skimo skis. You're usually wearing, you know, they're like touring skis, but they're not tiny skis. You got a lot of stuff in your pack. You got ropes, you got climbing gear. And you're climbing, I mean, you're starting a lot of times at like 3 a.m., getting up there. And then when you're on top of these peaks, you're navigating some like very scary and like life-threatening terrain, which I think is something that kind of draws you to it, is that excitement, that thrill of being out there, but also, you know, acknowledging that like you can kind of guide yourself through that. When you get really anxious, when you get really nervous, when you're up on a mountain like that, and you have to trust your ability that you can ski, that you can descend. And you can get your friends down with you as well. And I think that's something that's really special, because it's not just like, I love skiing powder, don't get me wrong, but there's something special about skiing this line that, you know, is like maybe a no fall zone or something that is pretty scary, but also having the ability to stay calm and trust your instincts and trust your, you know, all the knowledge that you've gained about avalanches and all that, to descend. And I just think there's a lot you can learn from the mountains. You know, I think there's a ton that you can learn out there that you can't necessarily learn when you're running either, because when you're running, you definitely have that, like, you don't want to fall, but there's not necessarily avalanches or other stuff out there that could impact you. And so I just think it makes you be more in tune with what you're doing and like more intentional about the stuff that you want to do, but also, you know, you constantly have to be evaluating, because you want, like, my life is more important than a turn, and I want to be skiing for the rest of my life, but I don't want to, you know, end my life early because I did something dumb. So there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of learning, and I really like that.
That's so crazy. On the learning topic, so you as a ski, obviously there's like a heavy mountaineering component, like with a capital M, in the sense like ice axes, crampons, ropes. Did you have someone teach you how to do this, or like did you kind of just figure it out yourself? Like how does that?
Yeah,
that's like the most intimidating factor for me, is like
100%.
technical aspects.
Definitely still is for me as well. I mean, I like didn't grow up a climber per se, but with our school being in Jackson, very unique. Our a lot of our teachers are mountain guides in the summers, and so with our school, we climbed the Grand when I was a freshman, and that was kind of my first experience with ropes and harnesses and all of that. And it's not something I'm doing all the time, but it's something that I just like learned. You learn the basics, you kind of constantly practice with your friends, and then yeah, I would say it's definitely just like learning. I have a lot of friends. I've been going out with people who know more than me, and that's kind of how you do it, is you find someone who's willing to just be out there with you and learn with you and practice with you. And that's most people. Like if you have a good group, they're going to be patient with you and understand that you just, especially being a female in this in this scene, it's not like it's scary sometimes. It's intimidating. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to ask for help. I want to show the guys, like, I don't need your help. But in that stuff, like, you want to learn, you want to be self-sufficient, and you want to be safe. And so I feel like that's like kind of the biggest thing for me still is just learning all about that. I think the more you're out there, the more you learn, the more experience. Like hands-on experience is the best that you can get. And like starting with smaller lines and smaller rappels and working your way up and just being with people who are willing to like talk you through a move if you're nervous about it. That's like key, I think. Because you're not just, I mean, you can learn about something online, but until you're practicing it in person, it's challenging.
It's true. Wow, that's so cool. It makes me want to go like do big like
Yeah.
efforts like that. I don't know. I feel
Mhm.
like it's an exciting thing. So,
For
all right.
sure.
So one of the things I glossed over, and I do want to kind of double back to, we talked. You briefly mentioned going out to Vermont for college as an athlete
Mhm.
to go run. I gotta ask you about that experience, and the reason I bring it up is because so many athletes come on this podcast, and so many of them have either a really good experience or like a not so
Yeah.
good experience on the running scene. What was your experience like going back to, like in college as a runner, like whether on the cross country or on the track team?
Yeah, I would say my experience was, I mean, it was very unique in the sense that COVID definitely took away some pretty solid years of that experience, which was a bummer. But my first year was really rough, and not because of UVM and not because of my team, but I just like went to the East and it was new and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is just crazy. And I don't think that's talked about enough about like freshman year is hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna transfer, like I'm going back west, but then COVID hit and I had 6 months. And I honestly think COVID saved me in that regard because I went back home and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try UVM again. Like here we go. And then like I absolutely loved it. Vermont is just one of my favorite places in the world now. And I got so lucky with a team of girls who are so unbelievably supportive. And I think that that was just key because I think if the team can make everything, the coach can make everything. And it's hard because with COVID and everything, UVM lost a lot of funding for the team. And so they ended up having to like, and the boys team was at risk of getting cut. And so they ended up having to add like 30 new girls to this roster. And so this D1 team was all of a sudden massive. And we were all like, what does this mean? But it just turned out to be a group of girls who like were really passionate and really wanted to be there, even when maybe scholarships got taken away, they were still showing up every day. And just like an unbelievable family that was just super special, and we all helped each other through some like really, really rough times with the COVID stuff. And I got so lucky because I know that some people's experiences were just hell on earth, and I have truly, never like met a more positive environment to be around of girls who really like made me and guys like fall back in love with running and competing, even when maybe it's like, you're coming from high school, it's all of a sudden, you're at this new level and it's hard to find your place in that. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. I think Vermont in the East is a really special experience because you are so close to all of these people, right? So I got to go to BU and race on that track every weekend. And
Oh
like I
wow.
got to be there all the time and be in these like high, D1 big meets and really challenge myself versus I think out west that requires a little bit more travel, which can be hard. And you just get to meet more people from different areas of, the East and all over the world, country, world. And that was cool. All my roommates were I lived with the Nordic skiers, and so I had a Swedish roommate and a Russian roommate, and like
It's
it
fun,
was
right?
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a cool. I really loved it. I'm glad that I gave it another chance and just COVID passed and moved through it. So
The
it
East
was
Coast
fun.
is legit. I'll be out there Thursday. We're going
Yeah,
out. I'll be out there for a few weeks. It's I have family out there. It's just different. I don't know. The
yeah.
East Coast is just like hard to explain. It's
Oh yeah,
just different.
I love
Um,
it. Oh,
I got to ask you about the COVID situation for you.
mhm,
Like, what was that? I don't think I've ever had anybody on the podcast that, like, obviously all of our experiences were different, right? It was a
mhm.
terrible time in the world, but like, what was it like being a student, Like, did they send you guys home? Like, did you stay? Like, what did it do
Yeah.
for you guys?
It was pretty crazy. Vermont was very intense about it, and rightfully so, but they were just a very small state who kept their numbers down very early on, and so they were very strict. But it was just like we went home for spring break. Some teachers mentioned, "Hey, maybe you should bring books home," but we were like, "No, okay." And then halfway, I was ski touring, and I got an email that said, "You're not coming back. We don't know when you'll come back," which was we at that point we were like, "Let's go." I was all bummed. I was like, I don't want to go back to school. I'm having a hard time. And yeah, I think it was a very unique experience for me in the sense that I lived in Wyoming and there's it's the least populated state in the
There's like
country.
8 people.
So
Yeah.
life was practically normal for me in the sense that I'd get up, I'd run, and I'd go ski, right? Every day. It was just training and then being with my pod of friends. So I had a blast during COVID, but I know a lot of people did not have the same experience. But then when I went back to school, they brought us back. They said, I came back to run essentially, and it was a very, very tough experience. I was in a dorm alone. I had no roommate at the time, couldn't be in the dorm with anyone. And, it basically was 1 hour a day of running with masks on with my roommates or teammates, and then 23 hours a day where some days I wouldn't even talk. Like I wouldn't speak until I picked up the phone and called someone because
Oh wow.
we were on lockdown. And that was really challenging. I don't think that the schools were prepared enough to really understand how that would affect students, and there was a lot going on. And then of course, like I stayed this whole time. I trained, I worked so hard, and then right before our first real race, I got COVID. And so it was just like this letdown after letdown. I think it taught me a lot, and I am so grateful for that experience. But it was a very interesting switch from being like the happiest, I love COVID, I'm like living in Wyoming, to just being like locked down for, practically my entire sophomore year. So,
Wow, that's so crazy. I had finished, I think I was in my last year. Yeah, I was in my last semester of grad school when it hit. So
mhm,
we did like our last few classes. I was getting my MBA, so it was like one of those things where it was kind of a rotating classes. So they just moved us online and we kind of finished that way and it was just done. I didn't even go
mhm,
to my graduation or anything like that because it's like nobody goes to it for grad school. But like
mhm.
it was just like interesting to be out of it and but it's crazy to hear like what the undergrad experience was like
Mhm.
that because it's definitely not an easy thing to go through. So thanks for painting that picture. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it was a tough time, but it was fun to make it out on the other side and really appreciate, being around people and still getting a, semi-normal college experience. So,
Big time, big time. All right, let's talk trail running. I've kind of
yeah,
pushed us
no,
along. We haven't even talked running yet.
no.
All right, we got Broken Arrow in a few weeks. I'm sure you're super stoked on it. You'll be going out for Broken Arrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So basically, I mean, long story short, the reason I wasn't at Sun P2, and I'll keep this short too, but I started dealing with some weird stomach stuff the last fall, kind of around Marin Headlands. And it's been a long journey. I thought it was like ulcers. I didn't raise headlands. Um, and it was just a weird time, couldn't really figure it out. But I kind of recently was more diagnosed with this thing called MALS, which is the median arcuate ligament syndrome, which is super rare syndrome that not a lot of people get, what they think. But it actually happens in a lot of young females. It's not often talked about a ton. But essentially, there's a ligament in my upper stomach that is compressing the main artery that gives blood to my gut. And so navigating that, essentially, like everything is fine. I don't have pain, but I discovered that the only time I have pain is when I run downhill. Um,
Interesting.
and so essentially, the only thing I can't do right now is like really race downhill fast. And I'm lucky there is a procedure you can get to fix it, but because of this, I've just been training like more vert than I've ever trained in my whole life, and it's been all uphill. And like I looked at the Strava the other day, and it was like 50% more vert than last year. I've just been as much vert as possible all the time because uphills just aren't what's bothering me. And whether that be skiing and biking and stuff. And so, I thought about Centipede, but I was like, I kind of want to set the narrative this year and not that, oh, like, I don't want to go to races that are going to make me feel like, oh, you're sidelined, you can't do this. But like, I want to go to races where I'm setting myself up for success. And in that being the VK at Broken Arrow is a big one. But yeah, suddenly, it was definitely been a journey. But what's interesting is just like I've started doing more time trials and uphill stuff, and I've just found that I'm in the best uphill shape I've ever been in, like breaking my records beyond anything. I just did a time trial today that kind of mimicked like the Broken Arrow course, and I was just like the fastest I've ever been. And so, yeah, I'm definitely just trying to like move through what's a bummer and definitely something that I wish I wasn't going through, but also that it's not like sidelining me or anything. I want to just like move forward with attention and strength and prove to myself that like I can get through this and even be a better athlete at the end of the day. So long story short, that's why I didn't go to Sunapee, and I'm gonna go race the VK at Broken Arrow, and then I have a long list of races and international and national that are like mainly uphill races. So I'm kind of excited for that.
I love it. I saw your Pikes Peak application, by the way. I'm on the board, so I get to
Oh,
approve.
okay.
I get to approve and disapprove.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, I saw you applied. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
So you should get
I'm excited.
you should be getting an email soon from Kathy
Okay.
if she didn't email you
Perfect.
yet for your Pikes Peak. Anyway, that's just such a crazy thing. So you think you're going to get the surgery eventually, or like, what's your thoughts?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm gonna have it in the fall, and it is crazy, and there's so much I'm learning about it. But there's a lot of case studies I've found, and it's a lot of young female athletes, runners specifically, triathletes, and the way it presents itself is it just feels like it starts off like a side stitch, like a cramp that anyone has. And so I was like, oh, I just have stomach issues, but it just turns when you run downhill with a lot, when you continuously run downhill, that side stitch is just like, think about the worst side stitch you've ever had and how like horrible it was. You can't even run, and it's like that all over your stomach. So yeah, I've been
That's not
finding out a
fun.
lot about it. It's crazy, but yeah, it's definitely been an experience. And the hardest part has been navigating it with, right now I'm in the middle of transitioning kind of through sponsorships because I'm trying to find a sponsor that's going to support me more through running and skiing, not just running. And it's been, it's hard to like navigate that and fear that if you express this in public, someone's going to think, oh, like she's broken, she's not worthy of this. But, I'm trying to set that narrative in the sense that like I have this, but, if anything, it's made me stronger. And it proves that you can like push through things. And I want to be that outlet for other people in running to show that like, it's not all just like happiness and everything is great. Like shit happens, it sucks, but the cool thing about trail running is it's so diverse and you can change exactly like what you want to race and how you want to race. And you can really, move your life around to, still continue, like move how you want to race around to kind of, I don't know, go around with what's happening in your life. It's not just doesn't just have to be the certain race that everyone thinks is the, the best ones or something, even though it's hard. Like missing Sunapee was so hard for me, and missing the 23K is going to be really challenging, but I have so much more to offer than just, going, sitting in the sidelines being sad. Like there's so much I want to do. And so that's what I kind of hope I can get to do this season.
I love the adjustment. And like, fortunately we've got a lot of really solid, amazing uphill races in this country and abroad that like you could make a whole like fun season and you're not even going to be tired because like running uphill is amazing. So it's a win-win.
Oh, it's a huge win-win. And that's what's cool. I think I'd love to kind of just like figure out a way where I can kind of document that or like have share these experiences of, okay, my season is going to be kind of all these iconic uphill races in the US and outside of the US. And that's different than what most people are doing. But like, these are really, really awesome races, which I love. I've done them before, but I'm excited. Like, I think that, it's even hard to find when I was like when I was on Google, like, uphill races, like nothing comes up, just like VKs or like random stuff. And you really have to dig for it, but they're out there. And that's what's interesting to me because I'm like, this in itself is its whole other version of trail running. There's the VK, there's VKs, but there's also like hill climbs where it's, 13 miles, 5,000 feet of elevation. It's still, it's kind of unknown like form of trail running, I think, or not unknown, but like people aren't really focusing on it. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, and the best thing is you got Rendezvous right in your backyard. Like that's such an epic. I got to get out to go do that race. Like, I just have to be like, I have to make that happen one of these years. I looked your Strava before our conversation. I saw you've done it a couple of times.
Doing it 4 times in the same week.
I think it's amazing. I was like, that's all I would do if I lived there. Like it's like, what is it? Like 6 miles and like 4,000 or almost 5,000. Yeah.
Perfect for someone who really can't run down and just take the tram down.
Yeah. Right. Oh my God. I feel like you could just take the tram down and then go back up, take the tram down. It's like perfect.
Yeah.
I do want to transition back to Broken Arrow because this is a big year. Like Broken Arrow, the ascent. It's kind of cool that you can just like put your focus just on the ascent. Like it's whereas like you see people doing a lot of distances and maybe there's distraction there. I think that might be like a superpower and like really help a lot. Especially because this is such a big year. What would it mean to you to have a good result?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously going through all of this, it would be unbelievable, but it's interesting because with all of this uphill training, the last, about a month ago, I was kind of like, well, I'll do the VK because it's the only thing I can do. And then I started, doing some of these like time trial efforts and stuff, and all of a sudden it became like I realized like, no, I could do really well, and I could place, this is something that's maybe could happen. And so I think it would be, yeah, really, really special. It's a lot of appreciation, the fact that like I'm dealing with this unknown illness, whatever, but still being able to like push my body and be stronger than I've ever been is something that I think is super special. And to be able to really put those pieces together and show that at a race like this would just be awesome. I think it would, yeah, it'd be super cool. I mean, obviously, as you know, anyone would love it, but I see how hard I've worked. Like it has not been an easy, however many months, and I know how much effort I've put into just like completely changing this whole schedule and changing my whole training routine and having a result like that. And I know I'm fit. Just being able to show it and like have the pieces go together would be pretty spectacular.
And Broken Arrow, I feel like, because I looked your ultra sign up too. Broken Arrow's on there a lot. Like you've raced Broken Arrow
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very integral to your story, right? Like it's such an important race for a lot of people. Like it's I don't know. It really matters to a lot of people, this type of race. It's such an important one.
Mm-hmm. No, it really is. I mean, that was kind of my first race out of college where I kind of wasn't, I don't want to say nobody, but that was my first race with the trail team. And I was just like, I didn't really know how I'd do. I just had raced local races before. And I remember coming up to the second, we had to do 2 laps that year because of because of the weather or something. And Andy Wacker was standing there and he was just like, you're in 10th, like you could get top 10 women. And I just remember like my heart sinking in a good way. I was like, this is it, like finally I can show this. And having that result, yeah, it kind of did change everything for me because that's when I met the athlete manager for Solomon that night. We got talking. She reached out to me. And that's when I was on Solomon for the year. So that was really, really cool. Really awesome experience. And I feel like it was just really showed me like this is what trail running's about. Like at the end of the day, it's about community. It's fun to be fast. It's fun to be good at what you're doing, but I love it because I feel like there's just this amazing community of people who will show up for you no matter what, who will support you no matter what. And it's not just about the elites, it's also about everyone there. And that's important because I think that that's why trail running is getting more popular because it's something that like everyone can do and it can bring everyone into the mountains. And as a professional, like I think it's our job to inspire people and create a sense of community rather than just being like this idol. Like I want to be someone people can come talk to and have, go on runs with and be someone who like obviously I want to be fast at the end of the day, but also like, someone that people enjoy to be around and I can, help other people through their journeys and stuff. And so I feel like Broken Arrow kind of resembles that as a whole. So I always keep going back to this race. I love it. So
it's a sweet one. This is sweet. Listen, we're happy to get you at Pikes as well. What else are you looking at for besides Pikes and Broken Arrow, maybe Rendezvous? What else are you looking at for the season?
So this weekend I'm actually going to the Mount Ashland hill climb. It's the second longest, whatever they say. Found that one through, I think, an article that Andy wrote. Really excited about that. And then 2 days later, I'm actually going to go ski Mount Shasta. So that's pretty exciting. Kind of the duo right there. And then, yeah, I got Broken Arrow. And then I'm thinking mid-July of doing the Baldy 5000, the new race that Hoka's kind of putting on. That looks really interesting, pretty close to me. And then the big one, the big two, I guess, I'm going over to Switzerland and I'm racing the Barhorn Sky Race, which is the 3K, which is starting in the valley to the top of the highest hikeable peak in the Alps. So it's like 10,000 feet of elevation gain all uphill. And then that's 2 weeks before I'm going to do Sierras and all, which is, mainly, I mean, there's descent, but it's primarily about the ascent in that race. And so
for sure,
still want to do that race. But those are kind of going to be two big ones that I'm excited for. And then obviously coming back for Pikes and the Rut VK probably, and then anything else that falls in there. But got some big heavy hitters in there for sure.
Yo, and the Rut VK is a good one too. That's a solid course. Yeah.
I've only ever done the 28K and I was always like, oh, the VK, whatever. I always used to look at VKs as interesting. I was like, it's not the real racing, it's not even hard like the other ones. Then it's like actually the way harder, or at least to me, I'm dying the whole time. But I love the 28K. That was the first year too. I got sixth at that, and that was kind of another big race for me. But to be able to go back and be in, I love that community as well, and still get to do a race, and it's really competitive. The VK, it's challenging. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually, I mean, very solid, like depth, like as far as
oh
men
yeah,
and women go. Like obviously Cam Smith's there every year, Jen
yeah,
Lichtner, like Bailey
yeah,
Kowalczyk. Like, yeah,
yeah.
it's a who's who. So you mentioned a few things about sponsorship, and I got to ask you about this because you'd mentioned like I'm looking for someone that is going to obviously support me on the run side, but also the
Mhm.
ski side. I like
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
like that's front and center for you, especially being
yeah.
so young in the sport. What brands are you interested in? Like,
Yeah,
put that
I've
out
been
in the
lucky.
world.
I've been, yeah, no, well, so it was obviously great with the Solomon experience, and I'm sure you've heard what's happened with them just deciding not to have a North American team, which was a bummer, but at the same time, at that point, I was kind of like, I know a lot of skiers on the Solomon side, and they just would not look at them for running. Like, they just really refuse to do like a duel. Obviously, they've got Sophia Laukli doing Nordic and running, but they just didn't really see like big mountain skiing and running being something that was a collab. But I've been talking to, I'm pretty excited about a few brands, but a lot of those, like, I would say in that realm of like skiing and running, there's a lot of big ones that people always like kind of yell out, and it's like Sportiva is a big one that people talk about. North Face, Memu is one that's really, I mean, they're really getting into the trail scene as well. And then Arc'teryx is a big one that's kind of moving in that field. And I think there's a lot when you talk to those athlete reps and you have meetings with people like that, you discover like they're really excited about having a multi-sport athlete and not just like, oh, well, you're just a runner to me and you have to rate. Not that it's bad, but Solomon was very Golden Trail oriented. And I just see myself as like racing is fun, but also like being in the mountains and doing big mountain adventures is a huge part of who I am. And so that's really important to me. And I think while it was a bummer, the Solomon stuff was over, it was like kind of a perfect time for me to sit back and be like, all right, like you wanted it, like you wanted to transition, you want something that's going to provide you more, and like what does that mean to you? And so this has been a really unique and cool period to be able to kind of think about that, which I think, better for worse, stuff like that happens. But then as a young athlete, I'm 24, like I'm lucky. I've got time to decide like where I want to be and what's really going to suit me. But I really just want to be seen like I am multi-sport, and I'm not just like okay at running and okay at skiing. Like I want to do best, like do both at the best level possible, like with the skiers and the runners, but both.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a beautiful answer. What shoes are you rocking then? Like, what have you been wearing these days? What's your
Um, yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of been interesting because I've just been in like Solomon and I have so many Solomon shoes still that I've been like wearing a lot, and obviously, like they're ultra glides, but I did just try out some of the Arc'teryx Norvans shoes that they have. Really like them, really awesome. I think they're doing an amazing thing, kind of upgrading and like focusing on their trail line. That's really exciting for them. And I'm friends with like Jasmine who just joined Arc'teryx and all, and they just seem to really, really, really like the shoes that they're producing and all of that. It's funny because before Solomon, I was like a heavy speed goat wearer, and I'm interested to see if that like, so that's something that like how they've kind of progressed in the years that I haven't worn them and stuff like that. But yeah, recently I've been in the Norvans, which I've really, really liked, and kind of running out the ends of my, I have like the Genesis and the S Lab Genesis, all which like still amazing shoes and like wonderful, right? And so like there's no reason for me not to continue to run in those until I'm supported again further. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just like in the open right now, looking at it all, seeing, trying out some shoes, trying out different things that I like to make sure I don't have really picky feet. I can kind of wear whatever, but
sweet?
yeah.
No, I like it. I like it. Listen, I mean, Arc makes some great shoes. One of my
Yeah.
best friends is an Arc ambassador, and yeah, I've got to see some of the Norvans up close. I'm like, damn, that's a solid shoe. Like
Mhm.
yeah, they're actually like their innovation's coming a long way. So it's cool to
Yeah.
see that. And yeah, there's a lot of cool brand, a lot of shoe technology going
Yeah,
crazy.
well, a lot of these big skiing brands are really starting to focus, realizing that where they can start being marketable is in the running field of it too, and not just having like a hiking shoe, like a really good running shoe that's going to compare to the Salomons and to the Terex and to the Brooks, right? Because that's how you can compete. But they're kind of, it's obvious that they're learning that they can kind of outcompete in the sense that they can beat like Arc'teryx and like Memu and I don't know, North Face, big skiing brands, but also to have the running side of that and be good quality, not just like, oh, one or the other. I mean, it's like how I see myself, right? It's like you want to be good at both and do both well. And I think that's a really big thing that these companies are starting to do, and that could really push them to be super successful in North America and beyond. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that develops in the next few years, and as more people get into trail running and more people get into skiing and more people see it as a dual thing, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. This is all good stuff. This is
Yeah.
this is a good conversation. It's interesting to me just how things have progressed and
Mhm.
just kind of where these brands are at now, especially from like a couple of years ago. I mean, especially like I don't know, when I got into the sport maybe 5 years ago, it is just so crazy to see like where the shoe technology's gotten. So
Yeah.
it's nuts. All
Yeah.
right.
It's crazy.
All right, so let's get into. We're almost about an hour. We're getting close. So I want to get into some ending questions. I want to make sure we always get. The first one is, and I'm very curious, who inspires you?
Um, I think about this one a lot. You know, it's cheesy, and of course, like this is what everyone says, but um, of course, my brain immediately goes to my mom, and I think in both my parents, but she has like both of them, but she's just really raised me in a household of just being like, women can do it just as well, if not better. Like she's so independent and strong and smart. And just like has always kind of made me feel like if there's something that the guys are doing, like you can do it better. You can be right with them. Like she never was like, oh no, like honey, like let the boys do it. She's like, you ski with the boys today and like you deserve to be there. So obviously that's like a cheesy answer right now. I mean, that's something everyone probably says, but I think it's so important to like I'm grateful to be raised in a house like that where my parents really, you know, believed in me since day one in the sense that like being in a male dominated sport is hard and they've never made me feel like, oh, just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I can't do certain things, right? They have never like made comments being like, if anything, it's like you can do it and do it better than these guys that you're doing it with, and you belong right there, which I think is really important because it just as a young female, like having role models and people in your life who can prove that to you and inspire you in that way, that can change who you are as an athlete as a whole. And that's something I'd love to be for other people, other young females who in the sport, just to know, like, just because it's like a field where maybe it feels like it's catered towards men doesn't mean like we can't take up space. And if anything, we should be taking up space just as much because, yeah, why not?
I love it. I love it. I got to ask you this. So you said your dad was a skier. I think you even said ski bum, which I thought was kind of
Yeah.
cool. Obviously back in the day, right? Like, how does this work? Like, obviously your parents, it sounds like very athletic oriented, things
Mhm.
like that. So when you told them, hey, I want to be a professional trail runner, were
Yeah.
they like, Andie, you're crazy? Or were they like very supportive of it? Like, how did that go over?
Yeah. I think it's funny because it never really like came out as like, Mom, this is what I want to do. I think it was just like kind of years of progressing, right? Like all of a sudden I'm running in college, but then you know, I told my parents I really like to trail run. Like, this is something I love to do. I got into the trail team. They don't really understand it. But, like, they're athletes. Like, they get it. And then what actually changed my mom a little bit, not changed her but like made her understand it more, was she went to Broken Arrow with me the year I got 10th. And she just saw how big of a deal it was and like how exciting it was. And she always talks about that being her favorite weekend ever. She wants to go back every year. But she just really saw like, wow, trail running is a big thing. It's not just like this little like hobby my daughter has. She can do it well too. And they've always been so supportive. I mean, they've been the ones who put me into ski racing, put me into running and supporting me when I was a kid. And like I think so when it kind of came out, this is what I want to do. And when I got that first call from Solomon, it was just like, being super proud of me, but like knowing that I could do it. And then they've been super supportive in all of this, like with the Solomon stuff, but then also getting this weird stuff going on with my stomach. Like the one thing my dad says is just like, forget all of the, whatever, sponsors, whatever, forget it. Like just remember who you are. Like just go show them. Like he always says, just go win and stuff like that.
I love that.
And so, I think it's definitely confusing at times because it's like my job is running, but like, and they come in a world of like being, intense lawyers. My dad's a real estate agent, but they see that I work really hard. They get firsthand experience of, it's not just like a hobby. I'm training all the time. And so they're very supportive, and I'm really grateful that I have them by my side because it just would not be possible without that support as a kid to follow your dreams,
I love it. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like without having it, like, I don't know. I always wonder, yeah, like without having a parent to tell you to pursue these things, or it's okay to pursue these things. No,
Mhm.
go pursue this. Like it's definitely makes a huge difference and helps
Mhm.
pave the way for, success, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Are you a big music person? Like, what's the walkout song before Broken Arrow? Like, what kind of tunes are you bumping?
I gotta think. This is again so cliche because everyone's like, I listen to everything, but like I really do. This is so classic too, like going to UVM. Obviously, like I've forever been a huge Noah Kahn fan, like number one artist for sure, but that's not really a good like walkout. Folk music isn't really the so I don't know, I like that, like I like some good rap. I like, walk hype music is always really into like chill EDM recently, kind of like Avicii, I would say is kind of something
Oh
that
man, all
I
right,
could
all right.
really like that kind of EDM is what I would put in my like playlist if I were, have music the whole time or something. So yeah, kind of the cliche, oh, everything, but yeah.
Oh, dude, I love Avicii. R.I.P. Big
I
Avicii fan.
know it's so sad. Every time, well, in my gym too, I like go to this gym class sometimes, and when there's other people there, they'll be like, "What music do people want?" And I'm always like Avicii, Avicii, whatever. But then we always just end up talking about how sad it is that like I'll never get to see him in concert, and like he's just And that new documentary on him was just such a so
I know.
sad. But yeah,
Well, the impact he had though was
yeah,
crazy. Like, what a talented dude.
so talented.
Yeah, it's crazy. Do you listen to music during workouts at all?
I'm a big podcast listener. I really don't like
Really?
listening to music. No, because I get in my head a lot, especially like workouts and stuff, because with music you can tell how long you've been going, right? So it's easy to
It's
be
true.
like, I've only had one song right now, where I love like I'm a huge podcast listener because it just feels like if you're alone, like you have someone next to you telling you stories and like just all sorts of podcasts, like crime podcasts, but or people just like pop culture and I really just love like it's like listening to stories and like listening to someone there and like learning things and I think it feels more like authentic to still feeling like I'm connecting to the nature, like I'm one AirPod in and still listening, but it's not just like blasting music in my ear. It's like I can still hear what's around me, but there's also maybe a story going on in the other ear. So
Wow, that's impressive. Like, I don't like. I couldn't even be able to focus. That's amazing.
yeah,
What's your favorite podcast?
I think there's so many. It's funny because one that I got recently, well, from last year from Steph, who was my previous manager, Solomon, when the first night I met her at Broken Arrow, she and I talked about how she loves this podcast, Tooth and Claw. And it's this like these two guys or these three guys who are like bear scientists, like researching bear behavior and all of that. And they just tell these stories about animal attacks, which now I think about it, like sometimes maybe not the best thing to listen to while I'm
Especially in
running.
Jackson.
But they have good stories about like, animals I would never encounter. And they like, go through the science of it and the sustainability of it. And, you can learn a lot. And I like when I feel like I can like listen, but also, people are funny, but also I can like learn, especially environmentally related. I was an environmental studies major, so I really like
Okay.
anything connecting to that.
Very cool. I worked as an environmental scientist for a little bit. I hated it.
Oh
It's so
yeah.
bad. I worked in Florida though. It was like
Yeah.
wetland stuff. But anyway, I feel like if I was in another state, it would have been way more fun.
Yeah.
But long story
You have to
short,
find your niche for sure.
yeah, no doubt. That's super cool. Do you do you plan ever eventually to like work in the environmental sciences or go back for another degree for it or?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. I think my dream is to have a part-time like remote job in the environmental field while I'm continuing to run for however long I do that and ski like or full-time, whatever works. But yeah, I mean I love my dream is to use my platform as an athlete to somehow encourage or create some sort of I don't know. I don't want to say business, but something to help just in like the environmentalism of like and sustainability of running and recreating in mountainous regions. I think that's something that's incredibly important in like how can we as professional athletes encourage stewardship in places like Jackson or like Tahoe when there's 900 people in the starting line. How can we yeah, this idea of sustainable tourism. I think we have a big role already having the platform and people who are like interested in that community that you create. But yeah, there's just so much that I think we can be doing better too as recreationists who care about the environment and want to continue to do this forever. So I would love to. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but things are changing a lot and I feel like more companies are opening up their fields for stuff like that. So
That's true. That's true. All right, last question. What's your bucket list race? I mean, you're kind of going to mine this year with series and all. I'm so jealous.
yeah, I know it's definitely, I mean, I'm like definitely really excited for Sierras and all, but trying to think. It's funny because I feel like it changes every year because then I'll be like, oh, I gotta go do that. Or, this year it's all of a sudden I'm like, my new bucket list is to run to the highest Alp peak, in the Swiss Alps, and I'm getting to do that. But man, I don't know. I've never thought about this. There's so many different ones, I feel like, and I've been so lucky to get to do pretty much. I have like one on my list, and I get to go do it, and that's pretty cool. Um, hmm. Wow. I'm really trying to think. I feel like Sierras and all was kind of it for a while, and now it's happening. I'm like
Yeah.
pretty excited for that.
I don't believe it. You know what the funny thing is about this? So I was thinking about this the other day and like having this conversation with my wife, and like, you know, I create like this idea of like this bucket list race, or like even just like we race in like beautiful places, right?
Mhm.
Yo, I never like look around.
Yeah.
Like,
God, no.
I like,
God, no.
like this was when I first started racing. Like I was in a race. My wife did a race with me this is like years and years. It's like 5 years ago. There's some race and Telluride, and like we do this beautiful loop, and I go and win the race. And she's like, "Did you see this? Did you see that? Did you see this?" And I'm like, "No, I was looking down the entire time. I didn't see anything." Yeah. And like that's like I think that's one of the reasons I think I like cycling so much, or like mountain biking or gravel biking, is like I actually take the time now to like look around and like kind of soak in these beautiful places.
I know. I'm hoping that because of the races I'm doing in Switzerland are like 7,000 feet and up, like I'll look around a little
Glance
bit.
around, yeah.
Yeah, usually you're in the pain cave so much that you're just like, where's the finish? But I think that's what's special. Like if you can give yourself enough time to be out in those areas and kind of do a little bit of exploring pre and post, and like getting to appreciate that, and that can be really cool. But yeah, you definitely like it's interesting to think about. Yeah, I mean, I probably won't even remember half of it when you're out there, when you're just like so zoned in. And I guess the same thing happens for bears. Like I've been on so many runs, so many times at the hill climb here, and people have been like, "Did you guys see the bears?" And I'm like, "Nope." I can't tell you how many bears I've passed in my life, like hundreds probably. And
Really?
Yeah, you just kind of put your head down, and like you're chatting with someone, and they blend in. They're not often. I'm aware, but they're not often like right on the trail. And I feel like when you're running, you're just kind of like.
Yo, I was so funny when I went to I went to go, obviously I told you this, I went to go to Grand Targhee to go race that race. So I'm like Googling like are there grizzly bear, like I'm like texting Michelino like, yo, are there grizzlies like in the ski area bounds? He's like, I don't think so. Like I don't know. Like and I'm like bringing bear spray with me in my belt, like looking around. I'm such like a Coloradan because like we have black bears. Like that's like a big raccoon. I'm like scared to death of grizzly bears. Like,
I am too, though. If that helps, like, I carry bear spray when I go run at Targhee. I think I'm the most cautious of all my trail runner friends in Jackson and Idaho. Like, most of them will not carry bear spray. They'll go on, like, the Teton Crest Trail and not carry bear spray. And I'm like, I go up to the resort, and if I'm alone, usually, if I'm with another person, I'm like, whatever. But if I'm alone, I'm like, why not? Like, I don't want to be that person. I mean, like, from this podcast I'm listening to, the number one thing they always ends up being the solution is, like, having bear spray. And it's just like, it's added weight. It's just fitness, free fitness at that point.
That's true. Yo, didn't a guy get attacked last year? Was it last year maybe?
Yeah.
It was like on the other side in like a very like public area, right?
Yeah, very. I mean, that kind of changed, I feel like, a lot of how we go about, at least for me, like I think a lot of us started carrying bear spray more and being more cognizant of it because he was off trail, but like near Jackson Lake, and he had bear spray, right? He just didn't have time to like, it did save him because the bear bit into the can, but they're out. Like the bears are, I think there's a lot of environmental reasons for this too, but being pushed a little bit more downwards and into just more human areas, and they're just kind of, they're not like scared of humans anymore. They are like, get out of my way. Like we're here.
Oh wow.
And so I think it's just the more prepared you are, the better. And sometimes I'll like play podcasts out loud because then it's like another person talking. So
smart. No, I think it's very smart. Yeah, it's just weird. Like I wouldn't think about like inbounds like a ski area, like, but I guess it's all open. It's not like there's a fence. So they could be hanging out.
Yeah, they definitely could. I mean, I've definitely seen them, Jackson Hole for sure, but there's usually a lot of noise going around, and my my feeling of safety is kind of like, if something were to happen, would there be people around? And usually there's so many people around on these mountains, so not too much to worry about there. But yeah, it's always good to be safe. I feel like better safe than sorry.
That's true. That's so true. Well, listen, Andie Cornish, I'm a fan. I was so happy we did this podcast.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. Wishing you the best of luck at Broken Arrow and your whole season, and we'll talk more about pikes after. So, super excited.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Listen up, guys. The Steep Stuff podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Direction USA. Guys, I am so excited. UD just dropped their new Race Vest 6-liter and Ultra Vest 12-liter in two beautiful aesthetic colors. You guys got to check these new vests out. They're dynamic in ways like that you just have never seen from an Ultimate Direction vest. Very stretchy, lots of storage, beautiful aesthetic colorways coming to you in a new, like a white and blue and an onyx and green. Just absolutely beautiful vests. I think these ones are just like some of the best products we've ever dropped, and I'm so excited for you guys to try them out. Hop on ultimatedirection.com and use code SteepStuffPod. Again, that's SteepStuffPod for 25% off your new vest. I mean, they're already affordably priced, but 25% off is just going to make it so much more affordable for folks in an already increasingly expensive trail running environment. So hop on ultimatedirection.com, get yourself a new vest, a pack, or any hydration solution, and let me know what you guys think. What'd you guys think? Oh man, what a great episode. Want to thank Andie so much for coming on the podcast. It was an amazing episode, and definitely wishing her the best of luck as she takes on some amazing races this upcoming summer. Yeah, guys, so before we get going, if you could, the best way to support Andie is to give her a follow on Instagram. You can find her at Andie Cornish. That's AndieCornish. Give her a follow, send her some messages, let her know what you guys thought about the episode, and send her some words of encouragement as she has a stacked season she's going to be taking on. One more thing before we get going, just some housekeeping stuff. If you guys enjoyed this episode, the best way to support the Steep Stuff podcast is to give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you consume your podcasts. That would be amazing. And if you guys are interested in a new pack or any type of hydration solution, get yourself 25% off your cart at ultimatedirection.com by using code SteepStuffPod. I've got a whole bunch of information and episodes coming out for you guys, including some interviews with the U.S. mountain running champions from the Centipede Scramble last week, as well as some of the runners-up and pretty much all 7 of the folks that got that punched their tickets to Worlds. So lots of cool interviews coming down the pipeline, and keep an eye out because we're going to be dropping a bunch of stuff for Broken Arrow in the coming weeks as well. I can't believe it's already Broken Arrow week. And I need a vacation after this. Guys, enjoy it. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much.